Welcome once again. Uh, my title, God's Own Communist Country, has made many people will thought that this is a propaganda program to make the communists glorified. In fact, it is not. My interest in this virtual tour is to highlight a small part of this large country, India, being very different in its social progress and its universal outlook, and which also was influenced by the theory of communism early in the 1940s and 50s. And this particular fact is what I want to highlight on. Keralam is a small stretch of land in the southwest corner of India, which is a small, it only covers around 2% of national land surface area and about 3% of the country's population. But in terms of the social development, that social indices, Keralam stands much higher than rest of the country. So this is what I want to highlight in this program. Kerala's progress is not specifically a contribution of a particular political ideology or a particular ruler, but it is a combination of various factors, which includes its geographical position, where on the west coast it is the Arabian Sea, which was a big open door for the international maritime trade. On the eastern border of Keralam, you will find a big long mountain range called the Western Ghat Mountain Range, which protected Kerala's land from all kinds of invasions, easy invasion from the rest of the country. Also, luckily for us, this particular mountain range is also the place where all these spices were growing naturally. And 44 rivers starts from this mountain range in Keralam, which flow through you can see Keralam is like a banana. On both sides it tapers, and only the widest part is about 150 kilometers, about less than 100 miles. So 44 rivers, which really fills up enough water for the land to cultivate things. So good maritime trade, which made Kerala richer, good conditions for agriculture, being very close to the equator, it also had a very predictable weather and a very conducive for a good living. With all this is now we call as God's own country. But to call Keralam as God's own country, we have a legend, a mythical story. God's own country is not a title which was used first by Kerala. It was used in England, especially by the county Yorkshire, used that as their tourism promotion way back in the 90s. But Kerala's history is mythological stories, tells that this land was created by one of the incarnations of God Vishnu. And this gentleman who is in the middle is called Parashuram. He had an axe, you can see the blood-stained axe, which he threw from the place called Gokarna, which is south of present Goa, to the sea. And it fell near at the tip of India, where the Cape Comorin is, Kanyakumari. And the sea receded and made a land. Parashuram was the son of a saint, Jamadagni, and he is one among the 7 sons. One day, a king who came in that area near the hermitage for hunting with a big group of people. Unfortunately, they lost their way and they were looking for some refuge. They saw this hermitage. They went to the king, and king was went to the saint Jamadagni, the father of Parshuram, and asked him that can we have some food for us. And the king knew that it is not easy for the king to feed them for more than about 100 people. But the saint very calmly said, go have a bath, come back in the river and come back. We will keep you everything ready. When they came back, the king and the team were fed with a big sumptuous meal. The king was very impressed and surprised. So he asked the saint, yes, how come you are able to even make such a big meal for so many people at such a short notice? Because being a king, I won't be able to do this quickly. The saint said that he has got a magical cow, a cow which can give them everything. So that really made the king, bit envious about the saint. So he went back home. But this, the thinking, the story about the cow really made him, to go back to the same place. He requested the saint, can I have this cow? I will give you whatever you ask for. You want land, you want money, but with this cow, I will be able to do better things for my country. But the saint said, no, this is a divine cow which I got. I don't want to give. The king really was very angry, and in his anger, he beheaded the saint. Knowing that, the sons of the saint came and know that their father was killed by the king. Parashuram, who was a son or one of the son of this saint, really felt this is really, I cannot tolerate. So he went into a meditation. He prayed to Lord Shiva to get strength to kill the entire Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas were the kingly caste in India. Finally, Lord Shiva appeared, gave him an axe. And he said, this is a powerful axe. With that, you will win everybody. And he went on killing the entire Kshatriya cult, Kshatriya caste from the world. He said that 3 times he went around and killed entire Kshatriyas. And finally, he heard that there is another king, Ram, and Ram of Ayodhya is another incarnation and the hero of the story of Ramayana. So he went and met this guy, another Ram. He said, do you have anybody called Ram in my name? Right? I want to test you. Okay, I'm giving you an exception. Normally I go and kill, but I heard that you are such a great fellow. I will give you a test. And Ram proved that he is worth doing that test. And Parshuram understood that Ram is a divine personality. But this was also gave him insight to the sins what he has committed. He was so feeling guilty about it. He went and meditated, and finally he thought that I want to have a land for a peaceful meditation for me and the rest of the Brahmins which I belong to. So he went and threw his blood-stained axe from Gokarna, where he was at that time, it went into the sea, and with the help of the god of water, Varun, he created the land out of the sea. And that land which you see on the west coast, southwest coast of India, is Keralam. That is what the myth about Keralam is. So that is one reason why it is called a God's own country. This is a present-day Keralam. Present-day Keralam is only known as a state from 1950, after the reorganization of the states in India. At the time, Keralam was made by the way the language Malayalam is spoken in these areas. And from the myth to the history, Keralam as a geographical unit was part of the Dravidian kingdom which ruled the entire southern India. It had more connection with the neighboring present state called Tamil Nadu. Even the language Malayalam derived out of the mixture of Tamil and Sanskrit. But in the about 3,000 years from that time onwards, Keralam started the seaports of Kerala. At that time, it was not called Kerala, it was different principalities and kingdoms. But the seaports in this particular region was started known to the Arabs, Chinese, and even Phoenicians, Babylonians, and even Romans and Greeks about some of the spices which are available freely in this part of the world. This attracted a long-standing maritime trade to Kerala, and that really made Kerala to expose to the world, and we started learning about what is happening around the world. It was a mutually beneficial trade practice which happened. The present day Keralam was created by adjoining two kingdoms, southern Kerala called Thiruvidampur or Travancore, Kochi in the central Kerala, and the Malabar province under the Madras Presidency of British India. As I told you, the common language we spoke was Malayalam. That is why this geographical area was included as a whole. Kerala has about 36 million, around 36 million people, and it's a small area, only 38,800 odd square kilometers in area, but it's a very densely populated state. 859 persons per square kilometer is more than the double of the national average. In fact, much higher than many big countries in the world. And when women ratio in Keralam is again another difference from other states of India is women are majority. About 51% of the population are women in the state. Literacy, again, one of the highlights of the modern Kerala is about 96.2%. Life expectancy, again, another highlight, is much higher than national average. Infant mortality at par with the world's best. In single digits. Kerala's religious distribution, again, very different from rest of the country. Hindus are not a thumping majority in Kerala. Only 55, around 54.7%. And Muslims are 26.56 and Christians 18.38. We also have very small minority communities like a few Jews, a few Parsis, few Gujaratis, Konkanis, both Jains and Buddhists all put together. So Kerala's social distribution is very different from what you see from rest of India. We have got reasons for it, which we are going to see why it is. As I told you, the international trade from Keralam was very, 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 active. See the seaports of Calicut and Koilon in the ancient times, and then suddenly from 10th century BC onwards, Musid is coming up, another big seaport. In fact, Keralam was a big hub for the international maritime trade from all around the world, not only from the west but also from the east. And people traveled all the way out from Europe, from Middle East, Persia, and other Middle Eastern countries, from China and other eastern, southeastern countries. The big international maritime trade hub was Kerala, and that really made Kerala's economic progress in a big way until the colonial rule started having its power on. Chinese and the Arabs were the early major traders of spices from Kerala to the west. Chinese and Arabs, Chinese took it through the eastern coast, through the eastern side, and the Arabs took it to the Middle East and across the Middle East to Alexandria and then to Venice. So this really made the spices from Keralam into big demand in Europe. And that demand is what made the Europeans looking for a direct trade route to India. And as I told you, Kodungallur, which is actually now one of the heritage cities in Kerala, which had maritime trade for more than 3,000 years, which is now present day, very close to the present day Kochi. And this trade also attracted people, travelers from various different parts of the world. And from 10th century BC, about 3,000 years back onwards, we had Jewish traders from Babylonia coming here. Apart from Arabia, Jews also did engaged in the local trading. When they had trouble in Babylonia with the attack from the Arabs, a big group of Jews came to Kerala and took refuge under the king of near Kochi, Kadungallur. And they knew that these hospitable people who lived in this place are highly civilized and they are more safer here. In fact, that really put Jews synagogues, and they started living as a trading community in Kerala since 5th century BC. In fact, this big number, I think more than 20,000 Jews lived there from 5th century BC. That large number made St. Thomas the Apostle coming and looking for the Jews of Kochi to be converted into Christianity. And he listening to St. Thomas' theory, a few of our Brahmins also accepted Christianity. And that created Indian Christianity for the first time in our land. And we have synagogues, we have Christian churches, mosques, and temples, which goes all around the state. In fact, even though you will find, those who travel in Kerala, you will find more churches visible than temples or mosques because of the prominent architectural style introduced by the Europeans in Kerala. Islam also came as it was started in the Middle East. Through the Arab traders, Islam came, and we believe that one of the king of Kerala at that time accepted Islam, and he left for his last years to be living in Mecca and made his family interested in promoting Islam in Kerala. So all these world religions entered very peacefully, and people volunteered to accept it by understanding the principles of it. In fact, it is a very harmonious way of understanding faith had happened in Kerala until the coming of the Portuguese. And these are some of the scenes, paintings on the arrival of Jews, arrival of St. Thomas, and this is the church which is now in the heritage zone of Fort Kochi, the first European built church. In fact, this style of architecture was introduced by Europeans, and which thereafter it became the common style of architecture for all Christian churches in India. So since it's very tall, it stands out from the rest of the buildings. The only Hindu temple which has got a Dravidian style tower in Keralam is in Trivandrum, the capital, which is the Padmanabha Swami temple, which is now considered as one of the richest temples in the world. History of Kerala and history of India has changed by the arrival of the Portuguese. The arrival of Vasco da Gama in 1498 in Calicut, he started a new era of the world history. New lands were found in search of India. In fact, even the American continent was found by Columbus, where he was looking for a land to India. And arrival of Portuguese really made a new era in our political history also. Because until that time, all the visitors, traders came exclusively for trade. And Vasco da Gama, being under the Portuguese king, who was having a understanding and agreement with the Pope at the time called Pedroado, had a other mission of making Catholic faith also instituted wherever they go. That is the first time that there was a challenge to the social harmony of various religions in Kerala, in India, happened first. The time of the colonial period, even though the colonials did not directly rule us, but they influenced our rulers very much. After the Portuguese, the Dutch came, And then from after about 130 years of Dutch, the British came, and until 1947, they were very influential in the kingdoms of Kerala also, even though did not directly rule Keralam in Kochi and in Travancore kingdoms. They were very rich, as well as they were having their own kingdoms, but under the guidance of the British government. The coming of the colonial period, especially during the Dutch and British period, so many brilliant engineering projects were started. One of the prominent was the railways. In fact, the railways starting in the hill stations of Munnar to transport tea was one of the excellent engineering marvel, which now does not exist because it was gone in the 1924 floods. Another one is the making of Cochin seaport by dredging the lake and putting the silt in the center of the lake, creating an island, and they used that island as a airport during the time of the Second World War, which was actually acting as Cochin Airport even after independence, which is now the port hub of South India. Cochin port is one of the busiest seaport in India nowadays. And also we helped the idea from the Dutch helped the backwaters of Kerala in reclaiming land from the Dutch ideas to make that converted into rice plantations, rice fields. Again, the European interactions and the European influence also brought several useful crops, food and cash crops to Kerala. Some of the prominent is the cashew nut. In fact, it's a South American crop introduced by Portuguese to Keralam. But Keralites learned the skill. They removed the fruit, the hard shell of the fruit, opened it, peeled it, and brought the kernels out. It's a highly skilled job, and soon that became one of the most popular snacks of the world, the cashew nuts. And the pioneers in hand processing of cashew nuts are the women of Kerala. Even now, Keralam is one of the largest exporters of processed cashew nut along with the Vietnamese. Pineapple, another South American crop, which Keralam is the largest producer of pineapple in India. Tapioca, again, another South American crop introduced during the time of the British and popularized it. Now tapioca is one of the most popular food crop, which can be easily grown anywhere, and it is also highly nutritious. Rubber, again, another cash crop which was introduced during the time of the British, which really earned a lot of money for our planters. Organized plantations. Until the coming of the Europeans, our spice plantations were not organized plantations. People went up to the hills, collected it naturally. But the organized plantations were set up during the time of the British, especially in the second half of 19th century onwards. Large-scale plantations were set up on the Western Ghat Mountains. The tea, the cardamom, the cinnamon, pepper, coffee plantations were set up in large scale in the mountains of Western Ghats in Kerala, which also encouraged Kerala's economy to grow in a better way. But with all that, the social life of Keralam was one of the worst in the country. The land belonged to only a few landlords, and the kings and the landlords used all ways and means to keep the rest of the population under them. This really created a lot of inhuman laws, and no questions asked even if one of the poorer person is killed at that time. Even the people who grow things, they did not have a land to stay. They were actually tenants under the landlords. They did not own land. They worked under them. They did not had even the right to eat what they grow. Only what is allotted to them. They are not allowed to eat even a banana what they grow at home. So that kind of a very discriminative caste system existed in Kerala. In fact, that is one of the reasons religious reformers and later the Communist Party workers had a great role which they could be successful, because they they made the people aware about their human rights and made a great progress on the social system of Kerala. These are some of the great Keralites who lived in the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. The man on the left with Rabindranath Tagore is Sri Narayana Guru. He was one of the revolutionary reformers of Kerala's social system. He challenged the supremacy of Brahmins. At that time, until 1938, majority of Indians were not allowed to enter into a temple. He challenged the Brahminic supremacy. He said there is only one God in this world. For humanity is the religion. Brotherhood is the caste. And the only way for progress for human is by learning. That was the teaching of Sri Narayana Guru. And another progressive leader was Ayyankali. He come from a lowest caste. He challenged the king on the social discrimination what really was existing at that time. Chattambi Swamigal, another great personality, even though he was born in a higher caste, but he was also a revolutionary thinker. And all of them emphasized the need of a social change. And all of them promoted education as the key and the tool to reach. That is the time Kerala's social changes happened. Women were having a great role in the social system. Kerala had actually a very matrilineal system of succession. But later on, that role was changed. The caretakers, the men, started being on top and started creating laws, rules for women to follow. And that is where the time that these religious social reformers came into existence. And